The Wild West was a time of lawlessness, and violence and gunfights were a common occurrence. While many gunfights were forgotten or unknown to history, there are several that have become legendary. Here are some of the most insane gunfights of the Wild West. Gunfight at the OK Corral. This is perhaps the most famous gunfight of the Wild West. It took place on October 26, 1881 in Tombstone, Arizona. It lasted for only about half a minute, but boy, that must have been an intense sight to watch. Those 30 seconds perfectly summarize the struggle between them for years. The Earps and Doc Holliday confronted the gang in the street after being deputized by the local sheriff to assist in bringing the cowboys to justice. A heated argument erupted, and then there was gunfire. The Earps and Holliday managed to kill 3 of the cowboys and wound several others. The only person on the Earps' side who was injured was Virgil Earp, who was shot in the leg. For their bravery in confronting the boys, the Earps and Holliday were initially hailed as heroes, but the incident quickly became controversial, with some questioning whether Earps and Holliday were acting in self-defense or if they were the ones who started in the first place. Regardless, this moment would be the symbol of the Wild West and the struggle between the law and the outlaws. Number 2, the Battle of Ingalls. The Battle of Ingalls took place on September 1, 1893 in Oklahoma. It was a violent confrontation between the Doolin-Dalton gang and the U.S. Marshals. The shootout lasted for hours and resulted in the death of 2 marshals and 1 gang member. Ingalls was a hideout for the gang, and the U.S. Marshals had to stop them. Ingalls was no stronger to the outlaws of the time. In August 1893, several members of the gang were hiding out in town and spending time at the Ransom Saloon when the U.S. Marshals got word. They dispatched a team of about 24 deputy marshals. The Doolins were warned of the ambush by a local 14-year-old, but for them, poker was more important. Nothing beats a good glass of beer. The gang was still drinking and gambling in the saloon on September 1st, except Arkansas Tom Jones, who was sick in his bed. When he saw the attack again and opened fire from a second-story window, killing U.S. Deputy Marshal Thomas Houston. Number 3, gunfight at Hyde Park. The gunfight at Hyde Park took place on April 4th, 1871 in Newton, Kansas. It was a confrontation between the James Younger gang and lawmen. The gunfight lasted for over an hour and resulted in the death of 2 lawmen and 1 civilian. It all began when an argument broke out between 2 local lawmen, Billy Bailey and Mike McCluskey. On election day, it was over local politics, which quickly escalated into a fight. McCluskey landed a punch that knocked Bailey outside the saloon. When McCluskey noticed his opponent on the ground, he drew his pistol and fired 2 shots at Bailey. Billy Bailey died the next day after being shot twice in the chest. McCluskey fled but returned days later to plead self-defense. McCluskey claimed that he only shot Bailey because he was afraid for his life, knowing that Bailey had killed 2 men in previous gunfights and that no charges were filed against him. Hugh Anderson was a close friend of Billy Bailey, and when he learned that he had been murdered, he led a group of Texans in Newton to find McCluskey on August 19, 1871. They discovered McCluskey gambling at a Hyde Park dance hall. McCluskey was confronted by Anderson and his gang. Anderson quickly drew his pistol and shot McCluskey in the neck and upper body. McCluskey fired back, striking Anderson in the neck. Despite their injuries, both men continued to fire at each other during the exchange. Anderson walked over and fired multiple shots into McCluskey's back after his gun jammed. At the time, McCluskey was accompanied by 18-year-old James Riley, who began firing at Anderson and his gang during the skirmish. Riley's first shootout, and in an adrenaline-fueled frenzy, he unleashed bullets wildly into the fray, hitting several of Anderson's men as well as others who had no part in the squabble. Riley, who had never been in trouble with the law, walked out of the dance hall, possibly in shock, and was never seen again. McCluskey died the next day from his injuries. Hugh Anderson was wanted and a warrant was issued for his arrest, but he escaped back to Texas before being apprehended. Anderson had recovered from his injuries and was working as a local bartender in Medicine Lodge, Kansas by 1873. Unbeknownst to Anderson, Mike McCluskey's brother Arthur McCluskey was on the hunt for him in order to exact revenge for his brother's murder. Hugh Anderson was eventually apprehended by Arthur McCluskey, who challenged him to a duel. Anderson accepted Arthur's challenge. The 2 met in the street with their backs to each other. They marched 20 paces apart before waiting for a gunshot to start the duel. As the shots were fired, the 2 quickly turned to face each other and began firing their weapons. They both missed their first shots, but Anderson hit McCluskey. As McCluskey fell to the ground, the shot struck him in the mouth and neck. He continued to fire at Anderson, hitting him in the stomach. The wounds were not fatal, and when they ran out of bullets, the 2 attacked each other with their knives in a bloody, messy brawl of aggressive slashing and stabbing. McCluskey died 2 days later, and no one knew where Hugh Anderson went. There's a rumor he died in 1914 when he was struck down by lightning. We'll never know. Thanks for watching.